Hi guys, my name is Roger, and ever since I was a teenager, I've always wanted to build my own car. I started this channel to see if an average person, like me, can design and build their own mid-engine car. If you like what you see here in my videos, please click the like button and subscribe to the channel. If you know someone who you think might be interested in my videos, please share the videos with them. I'll be adding a new video every week, and with that out of the way, let's get started with this week's video. Couple of quick notes before I start working tonight. I stopped working on these front sway bar mounts last night. I got to a point and quit because I was worried that they wouldn't be strong enough. On the stock suspension, this sway bar is pushing up against a real solid surface that is really strong, and the clamp is underneath where there's actually no pressure pushing downward. And I thought maybe it needs to be this strong, and my design wouldn't be strong enough. But after thinking about it more today and looking up some things online, I realized that maybe it doesn't need to be so strong. And the reason I think that is because the rear sway bar is just attached to these two small clamps like this, and they're not pressing against any solid surface. The clamp itself is holding all of the force. So I thought, well, maybe the rear sway bar is like that because there's not as much pressure as the one on the front. And I Googled some pictures of front sway bars that other people had adapted to kit cars and various cars they had made. And they had mounted the front sway bar the same as the rear. So I'm thinking that there's not that much force applied on this sway bar, or the mount that the sway bar attaches to. And a clamp like the rear would work just fine. So I'm gonna rethink these front mounts. I may use what I have and come in with some clamps just like on the rear and come down and bolt to this surface, or I may turn the surface vertical and clamp just like the rear is. I think either way will work, but I'm just gonna try to figure out which way I like best before I move forward on that. Also, I'm to the point where I need to work out how I'm going to attach the brake booster and master cylinder to the pedal. I'm obviously not going to be able to use these pedals because the way the clutch and the brake, both the top of the pedal jogs to the left-hand side, I'm going to need my arms to either run perfectly vertical or either jog over to the right, so I have clearance around these frame members. I need my components mounted further over here to the right from the passenger or from the driver's seat. There's plenty of area in there for these components, but they need to align with the pedals. And I'm at the point where I need to get all of that geometry worked out, either in my solid models or on paper, so I know exactly what I'm going to do moving forward and I don't work myself into a corner here that I can't get out of. And lastly, the gear shifter arrived yesterday, and I'm trying to get an exact location placement for it. Before I can use it, I've got to highly modify it. I've got to remove these cables because these cables ran to the forward part of the car, and I've got to reverse all these attach points. My cables obviously have to run rearward, and this housing is too big around the outside. I'm going to trim some of it away. I don't really need it. I have 4 attachment screws here. I can bolt it in very solid and get rid of some of this housing around the outside edge. And I'm replacing this boot and shifter knob I've got a new one ordered. But I'll have to make my own mounts to mount this inside the car, and a mount here in the rear for the cables to attach to instead of the front. So I need to start working on that detail also. So I've got plenty to do tonight. Not sure exactly where I'm going to start, but let's get to moving and try to do something. So a couple things I've been working on here lately is getting this steering rack ready to fabricate and mount in. I've got the measurements, I know the exact placement. I'm going to go ahead and start working on that here as soon as I finish this little clip. Some other things I'm working on is the steering linkage that goes from the steering rack up to the steering column. You can see the tube laying in there, kind of in the position it goes. I've got to fit the steering shaft, the brake master cylinder and booster, which you see right there, and the master cylinder for the clutch, which I don't have quite yet. It'll be here in a day or two. It's ordered. I'm trying to get all that to fit in this small area right here, and it's really tight, but I think maybe I have worked that out. But to get all the placement of those items where they need to be, I have issues here with my brake and clutch pedal. You can see the offset. The brake and clutch pedal come up and they jog to the left, and I need them to jog to the right to attach to the linkages, which you can see the linkage sticking through here. That's the brake linkage, and the clutch will be just to the left hand side of that. So I'm either going to have to find some different pedals, or I'm going to have to fabricate my own, and to get exactly what I need I may wind up having to fabricate those. So that's a couple of the challenges I've been running into the last few days working on the car. Another one is the gear shifter. I had to disassemble it, cut part of the frame off from around it to make it small enough to fit. Got rid of the cables which ran forward. I'm going to have to put in new cables that run to the rear, since the transaxle's in the rear of the car. But that's a few of the things I've been fighting the last few days. I think I've got some clear direction on them, and for this morning, right now, I'm going to go ahead and start working on fabricating and mounting this steering rack I needed in the car, so I can see how it interacts with some of the other pieces of the car. But let's get started on the steering rack. Okay, I think you just saw me running the steering rack end to end. And I do have the steering rack mount finished, welded in, and the steering rack is bolted to it. Got the suspension locked down, everything's snug, the alignment is close as I can eyeball it, and I've run the steering lock to lock or end to end, whatever you want to say, and it moves free. I don't see any issues other than the clearance issues on these tubes that I knew I had. You can see, I mean, I can get my hand in here, but it's not quite an inch. It's probably about 3/4 of an inch clearance there, and down here it's not touching, but it's almost maybe 3/16 to 1/4 of an inch clearance. And I've already started cutting new tubes. Get in there. I'm going to move that back another 1.25 inches on the tops and the bottoms. That should give me plenty of clearance. The only time you'd be full steering lock is, you know, maneuvering in a parking lot most likely, but I want to make sure I've got plenty of clearance here, so when I put the fender wells in I don't have any issues, any rubbing. I need to also measure my tire diameter because the ones that I'm going to put on the car permanently might be slightly larger than these, but I'll measure that just to be sure before I weld these tubes in. But everything else looks good. Can turn the shaft, the tires move easy. I am pretty happy with all of that. Don't think there's going to be any issues, but hard to say until you start adding all the components that go up here and doing the plumbing. Not quite sure how the plumbing is going to reach to the rear of the car, but work on that point when I actually get to it. And let's see, is there anything else I need to show you? I believe that's it for right now. So let's get back to work on something else. Maybe mounting this front sway bar. Quick little update this morning. I was planning on finishing the mounts for the front sway bar, but I've decided to mount it a different way. I'm not going to use the factory front mounts, which are jogged. They have an offset in them and they're just kind of difficult to use. What I decided to do was I'm going to purchase some more mounts like this, which are the ones that are used on the rear, and I'm going to get them sized correctly. The rear sway bar is a little bit smaller diameter, but they make them for the front the same style, and I'm going to purchase a set of those because it'll be a cleaner install and a lot easier to make. And while I'm waiting on those parts to come in, I've decided to move over and start making a mount for the brake booster, and actually the brake booster and master cylinder. And this will be the mount. I've got to drill some holes in it and add some pieces, weld some pieces on the sides, and it will mount. It will weld here in this area once it's finished. But that's what I'm going to be working on this morning, so let's get started doing that.